It was a cold February morning in 1858 in the small town of Lourdes, nestled at the foot of the Pyrenees in southern France. A poor 14-year-old girl named Bernadette Soubirous walked along the river Gave with her sister and a friend, searching for firewood. The air was crisp, the earth damp with winter, and the world around her was as ordinary as any other morning. Yet within minutes, the ordinary would be torn open by the extraordinary. As Bernadette climbed down into the rocky grotto of Massabielle, a place people usually avoided because it was damp and filled with debris, she heard a rush of wind, but the trees did not move. Then she saw her. A light, pure, living, gentle, appeared above the dark niche in the rock. In the light stood a lady, clothed in white, with a blue sash around her waist and golden roses on her feet. She held a rosary that glowed like starlight. The lady looked at Bernadette, smiled softly, and beckoned her to come closer. Bernadette froze, trembling, her heart beating wildly. She reached for her rosary, the only thing she could think to do, and began to pray. The lady moved the beads through her fingers, but said nothing. When the prayer ended, the vision faded, and the silence of the grotto returned. The moment lasted only minutes, but that light would never leave Bernadette's soul again. Bernadette wasn't extraordinary by any human measure. She was small, frail, uneducated, and sickly. Her family was so poor that they lived in an abandoned jail cell called the cachot. She suffered from asthma and often missed school. She could not read or write well, and many thought of her as slow. And yet, it was to this girl, not to the educated, not to the powerful, that heaven chose to speak. When she told her mother what she had seen, her mother scolded her, thinking it a dream. But Bernadette insisted it was real. Not a fantasy, not a ghost, but something radiant and peaceful beyond words. Against her family's wishes, she returned to the grotto a few days later, and the lady appeared again. This time, Bernadette sprinkled holy water toward her, half afraid the vision might be a trick of the devil. The lady only smiled, as if amused by the gesture. Over the next few weeks, Bernadette would see the lady a total of 18 times. Each time she came with a message, not for one person, but for the world. The townspeople began to talk. Some believed, others mocked. Priests doubted, officials accused her of lying. The police interrogated her, doctors examined her, but Bernadette never wavered. "I am charged to tell you, not to make you believe," she said simply. During one apparition, the lady asked her to drink from the spring. Bernadette looked around, but saw only mud. Obediently, she dug with her hands. A trickle of water appeared, then a stream. That small spring would later become one of the most famous sources of healing in the world. When Bernadette asked the lady her name, the lady replied in the local dialect, "Que soy era Immaculada Concepción." I am the Immaculate Conception. Bernadette didn't understand what those words meant. She repeated them over and over as she ran to the priest so she wouldn't forget. The priest was stunned. The dogma of the Immaculate Conception, the belief that Mary was conceived without sin, had been proclaimed by the Pope only 4 years earlier. There was no way a poor, uneducated girl could have known the phrase. It was the confirmation the church needed to take her vision seriously. But for Bernadette, this revelation did not bring glory. It brought suffering. Crowds flocked to Lourdes. Thousands wanted to see the girl who saw the lady. She was questioned endlessly, accused of hallucination, and even threatened with imprisonment. Yet she remained serene. "The lady did not promise to make me happy in this world," she said, "but in the next." In time, The church approved the apparitions. The spring she uncovered became a site of pilgrimage and healing. But Bernadette herself, now 22, quietly left Lourdes to enter the Sisters of Charity in Never. "I came here to hide," she said. Inside the convent, her life was one of silence, obedience, and sickness. Her fellow sisters often misunderstood her and even criticized her. She was not treated like a celebrity, but like any novice. When one nun asked her if she still saw the Virgin, Bernadette replied gently, "No, and I long for heaven." She suffered from severe asthma and later from tuberculosis of the bone, which caused excruciating pain in her leg. Yet she never complained. "My job is to be sick," she would say with a faint smile. In those years of obscurity, Bernadette's faith deepened. She no longer needed visions. Her soul had found its home in quiet suffering and trust. When asked how she could bear so much pain, she said, "Jesus gives me the grace to endure." As her health worsened, she was confined to bed. Her days became a rhythm of prayer, pain, and surrender. She was often tempted by despair, but she clung to the words of the Lady. "I do not promise you happiness in this world, but in the next." On April 16, 1879, at only 35 years old, Bernadette received her final communion. As she clasped her crucifix, her last words were, "Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for me, poor sinner." Then, with a peaceful sigh, she whispered, "For the love of God," and passed into eternity. She never sought fame. She never desired to be remembered. And yet, she became one of the most beloved saints in the world. After her death, her body was exhumed multiple times as part of the canonization process. Each time, it was found incorrupt, perfectly preserved, as if asleep. Today, her body rests in a glass coffin at the convent in Never, serene and untouched by time, her face calm, her hands folded in prayer. But her true legacy is not her body. It is her faith, childlike, pure, and unwavering. Bernadette teaches us that God often chooses the small to confound the mighty, the simple to reveal the profound. She had no wealth, no power, no education. Yet through her, heaven spoke. She was not chosen because she was perfect, but because she was humble. And humility, as she proved, is the language heaven understands best. The message of Lourdes is simple, yet infinite. Repentance, prayer, and trust. The Lady called for conversion of heart, and for the world to turn back to love. The spring that flowed from the grotto is more than a symbol of physical healing. It is a sign of the living water that flows from faith itself. Every year, millions travel to Lourdes. They come with wheelchairs, crutches, tears, and hope. Some are healed, others are not. But all leave touched by something greater, the peace that Bernadette knew, that in every suffering there is grace. She once said, "I am happier with my crucifix in my bed of pain than a queen on her throne." That simple sentence contains the essence of her sanctity. Joy not despite suffering, but through it. Lourdes today is filled with light and song, with processions of candles reflecting on the river at night. But if you listen closely, beyond the hymns and prayers, you can still hear the whisper of that first moment in the grotto, the sound of a poor girl's heart meeting the infinite love of heaven. Bernadette's life is a reminder that faith does not require sight. She saw the Lady, yes, but her true miracle was believing even when she no longer saw. Her sainthood is not built on visions, but on trust. The quiet, enduring trust that God is near, even when unseen. In a world obsessed with proof and spectacle, she invites us back to simplicity. She reminds us that divine beauty often appears not in grand cathedrals or dazzling lights, but in the silent corners of the heart. Her grotto was a dirty, forgotten cave, and yet it became a place where heaven touched earth. Perhaps that is the hidden message of her life, that holiness is found not in perfection, but in presence, not in noise, but in stillness, not in wealth, but in wonder. When people visit Lourdes, they see the water, the pilgrims, the candles, but what they truly find there is the same thing Bernadette found, the gentle face of mercy. The lady in white came not to display power, but to offer tenderness. She came to remind the world that love bends low, that grace visits the poor, that heaven often speaks through the least of us. And in that encounter, a sickly peasant girl became a saint. Bernadette's story continues to unfold, wherever someone dares to believe that God still visits the humble. Every prayer whispered in darkness, every tear turned into hope, is another echo of her grotto. She once said, "My weapon is my rosary." And indeed, through that simple chain of prayer, she joined heaven and earth, one beat at a time. The girl who saw the lady in white left us not a doctrine, but a direction towards silence, simplicity, and surrender. She left us the courage to believe that miracles are not rare, but real, that faith is not a privilege, but a choice. In a world that has forgotten how to kneel, she knelt. In a world that questions everything, she simply said, yes. And because of that yes, the light still shines in Lourdes, and in every heart that dares to believe without seeing.